and own your power. I love that.
Look around the room. You'll see that you're not so alone after all, and that unconfidence could look like any of us. Maybe your whole life you have been told that the best wins, but I'm telling you right now that the best known will win. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grasp Confidence Podcast. I'm your host, Tara LaFawn Gooch. And today we're going to shake it up a little bit and do something different. I want you to think about this. Think about being a shy introvert, a pastor, and then changing your career entirely to becoming a sales coach, but not just a sales coach, a ninja, a sales ninja. Not just a sales ninja, but a 7-figure one. And it was all about improving 1% every day. And you know what I love about this approach? I've done the exact same thing in my life for my own personal development journey. And I wrote it in my book, How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Power. The power of 1% cannot be understated, my friends. It literally takes small acts of consistency and development to become that 1% better, and eventually, maybe even a 7-figure ninja like my friend Jay Lee. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Tara.
Yes. So I will let you introduce yourself. I think I set it up for you, but I would love to hear a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, so growing up as a Korean-Canadian immigrant here in Toronto, Canada, I was under the shadow of 2 older brothers, and I was the youngest of 3 boys. So I was very much not just a shy person, but an extreme introvert at that, to the point where I couldn't ask my high school crush to the prom. When my parents asked me to tell the police officers to not give us a ticket when we were parked illegally temporarily while they were going to get cold cuts for their delicatessen, I went to the back seat and went into a fetal position because I didn't have, the strength or the confidence to be able to, speak up. So that was kind of like my whole upbringing, very just sheltered, very introverted, very, very quiet. I remember one story where my grade 8 guidance counselor said, "What is a appropriate age for dating?" And everyone's like saying 13, 15, 12. And, I said, my mom told me that until I graduate from university, which is like 21 or something like that, that I shouldn't start dating till then. And everyone laughed at me, including the guidance counselor, because I just didn't know any better. And I was a very sheltered, shy, introvert person. So my whole upbringing was that low self-esteem, didn't really know my identity, didn't have much of any confidence at all.
Wow, I relate to that so much. I was so sheltered growing up. It was like crazy. So between you and me, well, and everybody else in the podcast world and wherever this is airing,
Yeah.
my first boyfriend was
Yeah.
in college.
How old were you?
Yeah, so I would have been, I guess, 19. I think I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah, I was terribly shy, terribly introverted. Of course, we see turned the tables. I think we both have, right? But there is hope on the other side, my friends. If we can do it, you
There
can do
is.
it. Right?
Exactly.
So, today you're this, sales authority. And I actually went to your sales training the other day. Thank you for the invite, by the way. And, you're commanding this room, Zoom room of, many people, educating them on best practices and techniques for sales and, great advice. But was it always that way? It doesn't sound like it. Sounds like you had some struggle growing up. How does somebody overcome this, Jay?
Uh, it's not easy. I mean, if I was saying it was just like it happened overnight, it would be very difficult to kind of describe how that process works. Most of my life, as I mentioned, was sheltered. Even growing up as a minority here in Toronto, Canada, there is, discrimination, racial discrimination, to the point where even my parents' car got torched overnight and our house almost exploded. So we decided to move because we were actually going to renovate the home because we were six people in a very small 2.5 bedroom home, struggling financially, and working very, very, very hard. How does it happen? Like, I don't know if my story is very um, like normal compared to how other people acquire these skills. Mine is a faith journey, and at the age of I think 17, my parents um, basically took me to. They actually sent me to this student conference in Long Island, New York, and I thought this is the first time I get to get away from my parents. This is
Yeah.
the first time that I get to go have fun and party, and then so my friends and I, we played a lot of volleyball. That wasn't partying for many people, but like drinking and getting with other people to do things that they get in trouble with. My fun and partying was sports, and that was my escape, and music. And then my last night, the leader of the group basically said, "I'm dragging you by the ear, and come. You're gonna come to the last night of this campus conference." And I heard this lady sharing her story about how she came to faith. She was a pastor's daughter, and she basically said that it's not so much how you live and how good you are. And I was going to church all my life, and I thought that just being a good person meant that you could be a person of faith or a Christian, and that wasn't the case. Just in the same way, going into the garage doesn't make you a car, in the same way that going to church doesn't make you a Christian. But I thought that's what the framework and the formula was. And long story shorter, um, I felt convicted by God out of those 500 plus students that were there. And I felt like He was calling me to come into a relationship with Him. And I just decided to let go. But I was kind of kicking and screaming because I'm like, I feel like, coming to faith and becoming a Christian was like a downgrade. I thought it was like, being a person of faith meant I was going to be a loser. So I was like, I'm not sure if this is a good deal for me. In the sales world, it's not an upsell, it's a downsell for me. And so I reluctantly agreed. And since then, if you know anything about faith and the Christian, doctrine, is God is three persons: the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So the third person, the Holy Spirit, got a hold of my life because I was kicking and screaming and very reluctant and very much a rebel, and basically transformed me from the inside out, from an introvert to an extrovert, pretty much instantaneously, which is
Wow.
hard to explain. So I became this reluctant evangelist, and my friend Joe, who was skipping all the sessions with me, um, you know, didn't even recognize who I was because I'm like, oh, you got to know who this person is. God is amazing and all this stuff. And I was like that Jesus freak that turned over like instantaneously, and he got scared of me, and I it's kind of like I just became this like very extreme kind of extrovert, and it was very startling to my family when I went back, startling to my friends, my teachers. So it was a radical transformation that is hard to explain, but I'm still trying to catch up to, I guess, what God is doing in my life through the gifts that He's given me. So that's the short version of it. But yeah,
So faith can give you confidence. I think that's a
huge.
lesson there, you know? I
I
mean,
agree.
I've experienced that myself, Jay, where when I was at my lowest point and I was suffering from major depressive disorder and anxiety and suicidal thoughts and
Really? Wow.
oh yeah. And this was not long ago, folks. 2022.
Whoa, that's recent.
2022 I was rock bottom. Now, how do you go from
Yeah,
suicidal tendencies and thoughts and ideation to where I am today? Well, some confidence, but where'd that come from? And for me, it was faith-based as well.
really? You too?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow.
And we have a synergy. I didn't tell you this before the show because
Hmm.
I actually
Yeah.
I like the surprise
Yeah, I didn't know.
because it shows how authentic the show is.
Yeah.
Nothing script. Give more was the message in my mind that saved my life. And I write about
Wow.
it in my book. When I was at that lowest point, I cried out and I said, if there's anything that can hear me now,
Mm-hmm.
let me know if I have a purpose. And
Mm.
the thing that I heard
What's that?
was your life has meaning, but you need to give more.
Wow.
And then I repeatedly heard the words give more, give more, give more.
Wow.
And it started a cascading of events that led me to this point. And the foundation of that giving was a gratitude that every time I gave, I felt more full.
Mm.
And there's a lot to be said about that. And that's why, we have grasp right at the top. That's the name of the show. It starts with gratitude for me. And
Mm.
it was that you mentioned developing a relationship. It was a relationship.
Mm.
And it was a relationship not only with a higher power that I knew that was there, that was guiding me, but also a relationship with myself, one that I had never had before. What do you think about that, Jay? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the gratitude, giving from gratitude is exactly what I resonate with because, after going from, becoming a person of faith in my last year of high school, getting into the banking, corporate banking, national sales arena for 5 years, I pivoted to pastoring for 10 years. Um, so that is an example of, I didn't do pastoring after leaving corporate for the money, right? And I learned giving from gratitude after, dedicating an entire decade to giving and serving. And the only reason why I came out of pastoring and pivoted to high ticket sales and coaching is because when I was a missionary, all the funds that I was raising, I had to do support raising, which means I, asked people to help support me in my mission. It started to run out because I got pretty good at working myself out of a job. The whole point being is when you said that grasp and giving from gratitude, some people misunderstand, this whole sales ninja mantra and the seven figure stuff and this, I had people when I pivoted from pastoring to sales, one person in particular that I was ministering to, if you will, and they were like, "Would you cut it out with the sales ninja, bleep and bleep, right? This is all, you just talk about money." And I thought to myself, and they said you should probably stop what you're doing, quit what you're doing, and I took a moment about maybe 3 or 4 days to think about maybe he's right, maybe I should quit.
Mm,
Maybe this is maybe I am greedy. Maybe I just want too much after not having much of anything and struggling with a wife and 3 kids and not being able to make ends meet, having to return groceries at the grocery store and walk the hall of shame with my kids asking me, why are we returning these groceries? And I think giving from gratitude says, we always need to remember where we come from. And when
yeah.
you said you hit rock bottom 2 years ago, that's not a long time ago. And to see where you are today, man, I can't wait till we get on my podcast to share your story.
That's right. It's lined up, right?
Yes,
Um,
it is.
but that's the miraculous thing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, and that 1% really resonates with me. That's what I did.
Mm.
That's the key. It's not a short sprint. It's not climbing Mount Everest. It's how can I take one step forward today in a positive direction and
Mm.
tomorrow do the same. And then the next
Mm-hmm.
day do the same. And, you know, we're all familiar with the concept of compound interest. This is the same exact principle.
Mm-hmm.
1% compounded daily times 365 days is a 37% improvement. I think it's 37%. That can't be argued. From the moment you start until 365 days, if you improve yourself 37%, are you even going to be recognizable at the end of the
Not at
year?
all.
Not
Not
at
at all.
all. And I look back at pictures of myself and I'm like, I know I was younger back then, but I look better now. I feel better now. and it
Woo-hoo.
radiates off of you, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I just hit my 40th birthday this month.
Wow.
But
Congratulations.
you know what? I look back at pictures of myself when I was in my early 30s. I look better now. I feel better now.
Amazing.
1%.
Mm.
1%, right? And it goes with anything. 1% better with your relationships, 1% better with your faith, 1% better in your business. Guess what?
Mm-hmm.
If you worked every day to get 1% better in sales, oh, you'd be a very rich person in a couple months, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
So it doesn't take an enormity of effort. And that point from that rock bottom point to
Mm.
the pinnacle of success is actually a very short bridge with this consistent effort. But it's also about the relationships that we have, the relationships we have with ourselves, the relationships we have with our network, right? The relationships we have in business, the authenticity of our approach. And that's kind of, what I wanted to talk about next is because we met on a very authentic level.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there is alignment, right? We knew that there was going to be alignment. And for everybody's reference, this is the second time I've ever talked to you. And
Yeah.
that blows people's
True
minds when
story.
I
True
it's
story.
true. We just
Yeah.
met, what was it, Friday or Thursday?
Thursday. Yeah.
So if I wasn't authentic or if you weren't authentic and if there was no authentic exchange, would this conversation right now be possible? I don't think so.
No.
I'd love to hear your thoughts about authenticity and how it can, maybe we can bridge that gap in our networks and with other people to get to a successful point.
Yeah. And I love, maybe you're doing this already covertly, but a grasp, is that the acronym? Gratitude, relationship, authenticity? Is that what you're doing?
Uh, Responsibility is the second part,
Ah,
but yes.
okay. I'm actually interested in hearing how that framework works. But
Yeah.
the 1% better every day, just to go back a little bit, I was actually just doing my workout and my, morning devotion and meditation this morning, which I try to do every single day, which is that consistency, push, push, or quit. Most days I don't want to do any of those things. I'd rather, sit and sleep in and, all those wonderful things. But when you have three kids and a sales ninja puppy and a wife, it's really hard to do because then now I'm being a deadbeat dad or whatever, right? So I have a 1% better everyday chart or Google
Mm,
spreadsheet that I've been formulating for the last 3 or 4 years. I don't do it every day in terms of like fill it out, but I actually try to do the actual work. And that includes, and this might sound a little bit over the top, but I'm kind of that way, is I try to work on power, speed, and flexibility in terms of my physical attributes. So power, speed, and flexibility. And so those I try to do at least, twice a day. So I'm probably working out, twice a day, 6 days a week, which is like, 10 to 12 times a week, which seems like a lot for some people, but it's what helps me stay on top of my game. It's what helps me to get better every single day. It's what helps me get that mental clarity and that business acumen and that sharpness every single day. I'm continuously learning instead of I could Netflix binge and I love to do those things. And when I go there, it's like there's no turning back. When I sin greatly. But there's times where most times where I refrain from that and delayed gratification is like, okay, I'm gonna, while doing housework or while I'm cutting the lawn or while I'm, doing chores or making lunches for the kids, I'm going to listen to my Audible and be a good boy
yep.
and learn. And so, like you said, it's not even 37% a year, but like every single day and every single week I get into my masterclass, people don't recognize who I am even 1 week later. And I
Yep.
know you understand this. So regarding authenticity, in this online space, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding, like especially when you're reaching out and connecting, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever other social media platforms. I have literally people jumping the gun with a connect message saying, "Hey, stop pitch slapping me," or "Who do you think you are trying to get into my DMs?" And I was actually talking to Krista Mullion, who is a marketing genius, and her and I are both exchanging these weird DMs and messages that we're getting from, sleazy online people, the inauthentic people who
Yeah.
have probably shell accounts or aged accounts, and they're starting to do like, unethical things. And, there's one girl that is like, hey, I want to get to know you better. I'm actually flying to Toronto. Can you give me a city tour and can I take you out for dinner? And it's like becoming this like weird thing, right? And it's like, and she's like, Krista was like, yeah, I get that all the time with all these weird people who want to, all these guys that hit on me and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between, I think it's getting harder in this online age to become or be authentic. And some people just are triggered because they've been burned or they've been, tainted. So
Yes.
authenticity in the virtual and online space, I think this is beautiful that only after literally, this is our second, not even our, we've only met each other twice, and that's virtually, not even in person, that we
Hmm.
get to connect at an age to age, heart to heart, human to human level. And that's really important for sales. That's important for confidence. That's important for everything that we do as entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. So right on. And, in a world full of fluff and tips and tricks and stealing somebody's followers, because I see those kind of posts all the time. The best way to gain followers, to gain sales, to grow in your business and your brand is by being your authentic self, by being 1% better every day, by showing your vulnerabilities, by sharing and by caring and adding value,
Mm,
and genuinely approaching people in a nice way. It doesn't take a lot of effort, but you can look at somebody's profile, you do some research, and you get to know somebody on a genuine level, right? And if it's somebody you admire and look up to, I have found that the best approaches and there's almost nobody that's unreachable if you have an authentic approach and compliment somebody.
mm,
My mom growing up, she always told me the best way to make friends, because I had trouble. I was super shy. I was the kid that hid behind mom's leg. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, I do. I do.
She would tell me, just give a compliment to
Mm,
somebody. It's so easy. It's
mm,
so easy to give a compliment. And we can find these things. It doesn't matter. I could look at your profile and say, you have a very great brand. You have this amazing brand, Jay. I love the illustrative, ninja. I would love to hear more about it. How did you get to this point? And what would you do? You would open
mm.
up to me,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Because it starts with a genuine interest and a compliment, and it shows that I've done a little bit of research. It doesn't take a lot of effort. But I just love that because, again, this is the second time we've talked. And the first time we talked was just last week. And it wasn't even just you and I, it was me and a group of people I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
even know.
Exactly. Exactly.
They were your people.
That's not even really connecting. Yeah.
It wasn't even really connecting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here we are today, and we're sharing these amazing stories. But I love, your story so much because it gives people the confidence to go after something bigger.
Mm,
I think a lot of people need to hear these messages, Jay, because a lot of times we feel stuck. A lot of times we feel maybe maybe I'll just stay because I'm comfortable.
mm,
Or a lot of times we want something bigger, but then somebody else in our life says you would fail.
mm,
And it sounds like all of those things happen to you, right?
mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So what good advice would you give to maybe an entrepreneur or somebody that wants to become an entrepreneur that has had these struggles in their life, that maybe wants something bigger or has voiced the fact they want something bigger and other people have told them, you're going to fail.
Yeah. Great question. There's so many things that you dropped in there that are gold nuggets, and I appreciate your gifting. I can see the clarity and the communication, and the reason why you have become an award-winning speaker, TEDx speaker, and so back to vulnerability. I think that was really key with authenticity in being able to grow your brand, grow your sales, grow your followers, a lot of people will take the shortcut because it's frustrating. They're not getting the results. They're starting from scratch, and they'll use, engagement, groups or pods, or they'll pay people because they'll be like, hey, if you want 10,000 followers, all you got to do is pay X amount of people. And then it really throws off your algorithm because you got all these people who are liking and commenting on your stuff that, they're not your signature clients, that's for sure. And it messes up your whole social media engagement. Speaking of vulnerability, I just lost a big client, and I'm just gonna. I haven't even said this to anyone in social media, but I'm gonna practice and exercise what you just said, and go out on a limb and say I lost a big client. I called them a whale client, and they're on track to do multi-millions a month. And the 3 C's that I failed in, that I want to share with you and your audience to not make the same mistake that I did. And actually, this 3 C's are the thing that made me lose the client that can actually help you gain the client or keep the client. And the 3 C's I wanted to share is: number 1, communication; number 2, clarity; number 3, commitment. So communication, number 1, is something that I thought I was doing. And sometimes when we think we're communicating, and you can think of if you have kids, or if you have a business partner, or if you have a spouse or a partner, usually when we think that we're communicating to a good degree, the partner or the other party says, you're not communicating enough, right? So in some sense, I feel like we need to over communicate so that when we're trying to manage expectations, the other party is saying, oh, you're just meeting the expectation versus over communicating. And then if you can really go over and beyond that, then you're really, really communicating the good, bad, and the ugly, so that you're on the same page versus losing the client during that client journey. Number 2 is clarity. Having a good scope, knowing what the expectations are, knowing how much time is involved, knowing what the tasks are, all these details. Sometimes it's like, hey, we got a verbal agreement, or we have a terms and conditions, or we even have, a spec sheet that's kind of helping with that clarity in the communication, but it's not really specific. And without that clarity and that defined, specific task and outline and managing expectations, you can really lose the client. And the last but not least is commitment. If I'm being completely honest, because of the industry that I was helping, it wasn't something I was too familiar with. And because of the incongruency, I wasn't really passionate about, and I wasn't fully committed. I wasn't all in. And because of the communication and the lack of clarity and the commitment, it really, everything fell through the cracks. But I know that when you flip the table and you are communicative and you're super clear with your, objectives, your goals, your timelines, the expectations, and you commit and you're fully in, that you won't lose clients, you'll gain clients, and you'll continue to grow and scale. So the advice for struggling and wanting bigger is to follow those 3 C's: communication, clarity, and commitment. When I started out in high ticket sales, the first gentleman that I helped grow, he went from 0 to 16 million in 29 months. And within, I think it was 10 days of the job, I literally pivoted from pastoring to high ticket sales. I knew nothing. I didn't know the words. I didn't know the vernacular. I didn't know what MRR, CPLs, ARR, all these acronyms. I had no idea what they were. But I did know that I believe, or I felt, and this is something in terms of advice for struggling and wanting bigger, is follow your gut and your instinct, because logic and data is very important. But I'm finding that my intuition and my gut was actually smarter than what he was doing for 6-7 years. Was, here's a ticket price, and here's what I'm selling. Here's hundreds of clients. And coming, as a fresh person from the outside in, I'm like, we can probably 50x your price, and we could probably provide a new offering that when you stack it, it's going to look like ABC. He laughed at my face and he said, I'm going to throw a bunch of paid ads on your calendar and watch you basically fall and fail and laugh at your face when you do. I'm like, great. I don't thrive under criticism, but let me give it a go. So I put the slide deck together, and I one call closed the 50K deal. And I did 1 to 3 of those a month. And that company, like that, the price point, 50x, the company scaled and exponentially grew. So the point that I'm trying to make with that advice for struggling and wanting bigger, it's okay to dream. I have this dream goal of, how do I hit $10 million, right? In
I
sales,
love that.
right? And it's all detailed here. And so have a vision board, have a mapped
Yes.
out, and even think about like what is that lifestyle going to look like? What kind of home am I going to have? What kind of car am I going to drive? What kind of coffee shops, if you drink coffee or tea? What kind of places am I going to frequent? What kind of clubs am I going to join? What kind of materialistic? I'm not really, super materialistic coming from a pastoral background, but what are some of the things that you are in your bucket list? Whether it's travel, whether it's you want to buy a nice purse or $1,000 shoes, or a jacket that you've been dying to have, or an instrument that you've been wanting to have but you couldn't have since you were a kid. Those things, that mindset and that faith that we talked about, that we both, those things will start to close as you dream and take action to bridge the gap between the dream and the reality. And the more that you get 1% better, that gap closes a lot faster.
Amen. Now, we do have a question here. Hey, Jay, do you have any advice for me as a business owner in regards to sales? I can't seem to get out of my own head.
Yeah.
Ooh, Jay, what
FISA,
do you
right?
think? What do you think?
Yeah.
I have some
So,
advice too.
yeah, please, please. Ladies first then. Ladies first. Chivalry is
My,
not dead.
there you go. Thanks, Jay. My advice, my best advice, if you have a product or service that could save someone else, that could help someone else, help elevate somebody else's business, lifestyle, level of freedom, whatever. It's our duty and moral obligation to give that person and guide that person to the correct buying decision. That's how I look at sales. I don't look at anything as I'm selling to anybody. I look at it as I'm providing value and service based on a need and problem that other person or company has. And if you do that, it's not sleazy, it's not salesy, it's service,
Mm,
right? It's a very high levels. Actually, I look at sales as the highest level of service.
amen.
What is your advice?
My goodness, I feel like we're singing off the same sheet. So I just put a couple of things in the private chat. I'm not sure if you're able to even put that in your
Yeah,
banners,
let's see.
but is it FISA? I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. If you're able to even ask some more questions so that we can get to the nitty-gritties of where you're at in your business, and if time permits, we'd love to uncover. So one of the things I say is, bigger the pain, the bigger the price. So think about this. There's a difference between, if we take the doctor, my parents wanted me to be a doctor, dentist, lawyer. That clearly did not happen. My parents are telling their church friends that my son is a sales ninja. That doesn't go really well over lunch. Okay, so just telling you that. So, but I said to my parents, I'm making more than doctors, and they don't believe me. So it's
Mhm.
okay. So think about a doctor. When you have a family doctor, I love my family doctor. They're a generalist, right? And let's say they get paid for easy money, $100,000. They probably get paid a bit more than that, but and then you have a specialist, right? Who
Yeah.
is a world-renowned brain surgeon, right? They're getting paid, let's say, $4 million, right? $100,000 versus $4 million. The reason is because they've become so good at getting from good to great to expert to becoming a master. Okay, good to great is a huge hurdle, Jim Collins. From great to expert is another hurdle. From expert to master is irreplaceable.
Ooh.
And it's exactly what Tara and I were saying, is that 1% better. The advice is, how do I, as a business owner, with regards to sale, I can't get out of my own head, is you're the best person to sell your product, service, or your solution. If we look for outside sources before we do it ourselves, then product market fit, market message resonance, and the ability to scale. Sales is simplicity. So make sure that your offering is very simple. Okay, I know that's counterintuitive to what a lot of people do, but having been able to scale companies from 0 to 16 million in 29 months, this company from 0 to 3 million in 24 months, another health coaching company from $100,000 a month to $1 million months, it's simplicity. And
Yeah.
simplicity sells, and simplicity scales. And I want to just piggyback what Tara said is selling is serving, and it's the highest form of serving. And a lot of people look at sales as this icky, salesy, sleazy thing, especially when you go to like a car dealership or you go to like a retail clothing store and you have the commission people like jumping on your back saying you should try this, you should try that. I'm like, first of all, I'm not a XL, right? I'm a medium, and they're just trying to sell you everything, and they're trying to hit their quotas, they're trying to hit their commissions, right?
Yep.
I completely understand it, but when you look at selling as serving, and I look at sales as leadership,
Yeah.
and it's the best gift that you can acquire, and this top 1% skill I believe in the world, and it's also the greatest gift that you can give because you're actually helping someone make a decision that they actually already want to. People hate being sold, but they love to buy. People
Yep.
hate being sold, but they love to buy. So how can I facilitate an invitation? So if Tara comes into this retail clothing store or this car dealership, and I said, "Hey, can I get you a coffee or tea?" Right? Come into my living room, right? Nothing here for sale. Just let me know if you have any questions. I'll let you have some time to look at some of the cars or look at some of the clothes. If there's anything that you're interested in, let me let you know, or let me know if you have any questions. And then, just if you're wondering, there's a couple of promos that are happening in the month of May, and here they are, right? So just be serving. What are you looking for? What is the thing that you are here for? What brought you in here today, right? So just serve them. Faiza is how you pronounce your name. Thank you for the phonetics. That's pretty helpful. And that's being authentic and vulnerable, is being able to serve and know your client. And when you know your client and your prospect and the buyer journey, the better you know it, people are emotional buyers.
Yeah.
So when you think about the thing that you're looking to buy or the thing that you're looking to sell, think about the client journey and think about what you purchased that was maybe one of the most expensive, memorable things that you purchased, right? And think about what is it that made you buy that product, service, or solution, and then replicate that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Reverse engineer it, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No.
That's such powerful advice. Such powerful advice. Well, I can't wait to get to $50 million months. Jay, are you going to help me?
Absolutely. It starts with the first million.
Yes. Let's go, man. Let's go. I can be your next poster child. How about that?
I love case studies.
Wonderful. But you know what? It starts with confidence. No matter how great our offers are, our solutions are, if we're not confident within ourselves as entrepreneurs, it's really hard to communicate the value we can provide to someone else. So I will leave everyone with this. Confidence becomes equitable. Confidence grows in value. It gains interest. And if we practice it with that 1% compounded deal that we were talking about this whole time during the show, by the end of the year, you're going to be unstoppably confident and very well off. So, Jay, thank you so much for being a lovely guest on our show. You are welcome back anytime, my friend.
Oh, wow. We need another one.
I know, right? We could just keep going on and on.
Faiza says she's next, by the way, in the comments for the
Are
50
you
million.
next for the 50 million months?
Yeah.
The sky's the limit. But thank you so much for everyone who tuned in today, and we will catch you on the next episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch us in the podcast world on Apple, Spotify, Audible, and iHeartRadio. We love our listeners. Please leave some 5-star reviews, y'all. Thank you so much for everybody who tuned in today. We will catch you next time. Take care.